The story begins at the border of the Kazal territory, where land was ravaged by a severe drought, and it led everyone to despair due to the scarcity of water. The well was dry as one of the villagers looked on with a look of terror in his eyes. The fields, completely cracked, made any kind of agriculture impossible. Not only humans, but even the animals were succumbing to dehydration. In this tragedy, the villagers knew they had to flee, but this was not simple, as the Marquis of Kazal considered fleeing a serious offense. He sends his soldiers to punish with execution anyone who tries to escape. One of the soldiers approaches and slits the throat of a man, while the rest of the villagers begin to run in panic. Among them, a small child tries to escape but stumbles along the way. Turning around with eyes full of terror, the child begs for help, as the soldier raises his sword in the air toward the child's eye. Tragically, no one is able to save her, and she is executed right there. The one who led this attack was the Marquis' son, a powerful mage who claims to have the blood of the divine kings running through his veins. With an expression of irritation, he asserts that even beasts should show gratitude, questioning the citizens if they don't understand why they're still alive. Even so, they try to escape just because it hasn't rained for some time, and he then asks why they are so ungrateful and insolent. A woman in tears embraces her son and begs for forgiveness, asking that if she is to be executed, at least spare her son's life. However, a soldier orders her to be quiet and strikes her in the back with a spear, almost knocking her down. The blow, instead of just knocking her down, spreads the blood of the child, staining them with the suffering of their mother. As the woman falls to the ground, the child begins to crawl, trying to get away from the lifeless body. Klee, observing the scene, questions the soldier about such negligence, criticizing him for not making this situation more entertaining. The soldier, embarrassed, apologizes for the lack of creativity and asks what he could do to entertain him better. In response, Klee smiles maliciously. The situation becomes even crueler when the soldiers begin to hang the villagers, turning the suffering into a macabre spectacle. To make matters worse, the villagers are forced to bear the weight of their own loved ones, for if they fail, they will perish. The scene is dark and perverse, reflecting the extreme cruelty of the Marquis' son. One of the soldiers calls for the young master, who turns to listen to what he has to say. The soldier explains that the man will bleed to death before they can do anything else, and it would be better to enjoy it while he is still alive. The woman, overwhelmed with despair, cries while holding her husband, trembling and pleading for them to stop. In a desperate act, she runs to one of the soldiers, trying to convince him with pleas. The soldier, merciless, slaps her and orders her to step away. The woman, with tears streaming, holds her bruised face and calls for her husband, who is already bound by several ropes to the same tree where the others had been. As the scene unfolds, the Marquis' son laughs and comments that all of this is truly magnificent. While he mocks, the woman continues to hold her husband, trying to support him amidst her tears. The young master, with an ironic tone, praises her effort, saying she is doing a great job. He even adds that she should keep holding her husband, for without her support, the wound will open and he will eventually die. We see the woman trembling as she holds her husband's body, trying to keep him steady. At this moment, a male voice interrupts, asking the young master to stop treating the blood of the divine king with such irreverence. When he turns to identify the owner of the voice, he spots a knight approaching. We find out his name is Zebek. He positions himself directly in front of the young master, revealing himself to be, in fact, his sword instructor. During the confrontation, Zebek questions whether it is really necessary to go to such extremes to punish people. He argues that as someone who has inherited the blood of a divine king, the young master should at least act with more dignity. Have some dignity, declares the young master, adding that his honor will remain intact as long as no one knows what is happening there. He asserts that the citizens are fools for trying to escape just because it hasn't rained recently. He then asks Zebek what he plans to do and if he will be the one to spread this information. With a sarcastic tone, he comments that there is no way a knight recognized by the Church of the King would dare oppose someone with divine blood. Zebek responds calmly, simply stating that the truth cannot be hidden forever. The young master sighs, but his expression shows increasing irritation. A soldier suggests that they should simply kill Zebek, but the young master requests a whip instead. At once, the whip is handed to him, and he uses it to begin whipping the woman holding her husband. Zebek watches the scene in shock, unable to act, merely watching helplessly, as the woman is repeatedly whipped. After some time, the young master is panting. He then begins to smile with a tone of psychopathy, until he comments that it is truly fascinating how the woman still struggles to support her husband even while being whipped. Walking with a smile on his face, he tells Zebek that he should also enjoy himself and take advantage of life while he can. Zebek, on the other hand, observes the bodies scattered around, probably feeling a deep frustration. With the arrival of night, we see that some people no longer have anyone to support them, remaining hanging and lifeless. Some have passed out, exhausted from dehydration. Jan, with difficulty, tells his beloved Safia that she should flee and admits that he was wrong before. She, however, shakes her head, tightening her embrace around him even more. With a weak voice, she asks if the Emperor's herald will really appear while holding a coin. She then looks to the horizon, seeking answers. After some time, Safia passes out from the pain, but soon we see someone offering her water to revive her. She begins to cough from choking on the water, until she opens her eyes and, to her surprise, realizes that Zebek is standing before her, asking her to be quiet. He asks if she can eat, holding a spoon of food, while he begins to care for her so that she can regain her strength. We find out that he used his cloak as an improvised blanket. He even stood guard while Safia slept. Noticing the sunrise, Zebek realizes it's time to leave. Not very pleased, he wakes Safia up. He explains that he arrived unseen, but now he needs to leave before he is discovered, as he will be punished if anyone knows of his presence. As he speaks, he makes a pained expression and apologizes for Safia's engagement, saying there is no need to hold on to him anymore. We see that he has improvised a support to hold the man up with a piece of wood, but we don't know if Jan is still alive. Safia's eyes show pure terror as she lets the piece of wood fall, even surprising Zebek a great night. He watches her struggle to hold her husband. In her desperation, she asks his name, promising to inform the Herald Clan to spare him when they arrive. The mention of the name irritates him slightly, and Zebek questions whether she is referring to the exterminators of sanctity. He states that they are soulless heretics and asks if she is the one who hired them. Safia gestures affirmatively with her head. Zebek comments that he doesn't know if these people truly exist, even though the young master commands 20 well-armed soldiers. Additionally, he himself couldn't defeat them alone, not to mention that Klee also has blue blood in his veins. He further emphasizes that Safia must be aware of the incredible power of divine blood, especially the blood of the Jaegas. Safia responds, asserting that even though he's a mage, a Herald Clan can defeat him, as they too have magical abilities. She explains that they are called the exterminators of sanctity because they earned this title after killing kings who possessed divine blood. Zebek shakes his head and comments that Safia is clearly not in a stable mental state, which is understandable after so much trauma. With a formal gesture, he finally introduces himself, revealing that his name is Zebek and that he is a holy knight of the church. He doesn't reveal his name so that she will beg the exterminators of sanctity for his life. She listens to what he says even though she is on the verge of collapse. Zebek stresses that even if they come, he will fight with all his strength. Before leaving, he says that he will return at night to check on how she is. As he moves away, Safia shows anguish, but tries to keep her strength, repeating to herself that she only needs to hold out for 2 more days. Looking at the Herald Clan symbol on the ground, she reinforces that 2 days will be enough. The narrative takes us back to a time before the drought, to a farm where Safia and Jan were talking. Jan hands something to Safia, which appears to be a coin. Curious, she wonders what it is. Jan asks if she has ever heard of the Herald Clan. Safia replies affirmatively, explaining that her father used to tell stories about them when she was younger. According to her father, all the members of the Herald Clan had no soul. Jan confirms this and explains that the gold coin Safia is holding is known as the Emperor's Gold, capable of summoning those without souls. However, he warns of the danger, as if anyone from the king's church saw her with such an object, the heretic interrogators would execute her. Jan then gives her a kiss on the cheek, making Safia extremely embarrassed. With a slight smile, she asks why he would give her something so dangerous as a gift. He replies that it's only for severe emergencies in case something happens to them. Jan explains that if she draws a triangle on the ground and places the coin in the center, a herald will come to help her, although he hopes that will never be necessary. Safia understands the meaning as she looks at the triangle drawn on the ground, repeating to herself that 2 days is all she needs to endure. Her husband's body begins to attract flies, but she remains determined. Another day passes and Safia insists that just 1 more day will be enough. She looks at the sun and says that if she can hold on, everything will be fine, although her body is about to give in. With blurry vision, she collapses on the ground, a victim of dehydration. Safia dies but maintains her determination until the end. The story returns to a forward post where the soldiers are cleaning themselves after the massacre in the village. Zebek is there too, looking at the sun and commenting that the day is exceptionally hot. Klee approaches and asks why Zebek isn't smiling yet, stating that he should be having a lot of fun with all of this. Zebek replies that if they keep killing the citizens, there will be no one left to collect taxes from. Klee retorts, saying that the discontented have already left and there won't be much to collect anyway, as the villagers are stealing from each other. Zebek, with clenched fists, argues that the Marquess's territory has fertile soil and the people could be evacuated, avoiding such suffering. Klee states that suffering is necessary for the villagers are ungrateful, and if they don't suffer, they'll ruin agriculture and escape, just like they tried to do now. Zebek tries to explain that agriculture won't be harmed as it depends on individual skills, but Klee abruptly interrupts him. Klee declares that agriculture depends, in fact, on the soil, the climate, and the light of the king, stressing that Zebek must have learned that from the church, laughing sarcastically. Zebek shows irritation but remains silent, while Klee gets closer, staring at him intently. Klee asserts that the drought they face is a punishment for the betrayal of the king's church, something clear in the doctrine. Zebek calmly responds, saying that this interpretation is quite broad. Klee tells him that someone made the soil fertile and someone else calmed the drought. They must punish the sinners and those who tried to escape and destroy their lands, while those who helped enrich the soil deserve to be rewarded with land. He does this to save the people, and if Xebec wants to go against his orders and save the villagers, he must do his best. Klee starts walking, while Xebec stands still, not saying a word. The story then returns to some slums in the border territory, where more citizens have died due to dehydration. Xebec approaches the hill where he left Sophia, and when he looks, his eyes fill with pain. Looking up, he sees her body on the ground and clenches his fist in anger, saying that in the end, she couldn't hold on. He believes that even if the heralds arrived now, it would be useless, as most of the villagers had already died. As he gazes at Sophia's corpse, he starts to sense a sinister presence, and immediately, someone appears behind him, with a sword pointed at his neck. The person warns him that they will bring him down if he moves, asking Xebec not to turn around. Xebec, sensing the ghostly aura of the individual, deduces that he must be a herald. The being asks if the man is a knight or part of a rescue team, to which Xebec confirms that he is a holy knight. The man asks, as a precaution, if he didn't have any contract, saying it would be interesting if a knight from the king's church requested a contract there. Xebec, irritated, asks if the man is mocking him. The man reflects for a moment, saying that the girl was his contractor and that she was already dead, so he got a gold coin for free. He asks what happened there. Xebec responds that if the man sheathes his sword and steps back, he will tell the truth in exchange for his honor. The man smiles and nods, using his ghostly aura to considerably increase the distance between them. Xebec, surprised by the speed of the movement, wonders if the man is truly a ghost. The man sheathes his sword and says that it seems Xebec believes he would have been defeated if he hadn't ambushed him. But it's fine, because if Xebec is a holy knight, at least he has courage. Xebec asks the man if he's a mage, but the other responds that everyone in the Herald Clan is except for him. Confused, the swordsman questions whether what the man did earlier was not magic. The interlocutor then explains that it must be difficult for someone like him to distinguish between superhuman physical strength and magic. Still intrigued, Xebec asks the man's name and his classification as a herald. The stranger remains silent for a few moments. Then he insists, stating that he has already revealed who he is and where he comes from. In response, the man ironically asks if Xebec truly said that, as he didn't hear it. Finally, he introduces himself. "My name is Azadin, of the 108 Spirits, the Herald of the Emperor." Xebec notes that the 108 Spirits is the lowest position, but the movement demonstrated by Azadin proves that he is far from ordinary. Azadin takes the opportunity to remind Xebec he had promised to tell what happened there. After a brief silence, both observe the territory from above. The herald comments that the story is indeed impressive. Soon, a different voice is heard announcing that the contract has been completed. Xebec feels something strange in the air and sees a bird flying above. The bird lands on Azadin's shoulder and informs him that he got free coins because the requester is dead. Surprised to hear the owl speak, Xebec listens as it says that it's time to move on to fulfill another mission, and there's no time for rest. The bird instructs Azadin to go ahead. He clicks his tongue and begins to walk, but the swordsman asks him to wait, questioning if he will really leave after receiving his reward for the requester's death. Azadin, with a curious tone, asks if Xebec wants the request to be fulfilled, finding it strange as he believes the master will suffer the consequences. Firmly, Xebec responds that this won't happen and calls the herald soulless. The swordsman draws his sword and points it at Azadin, declaring that he will defeat him right then and there. Azadin, with an ironic smile, comments that it's funny to see him try to stop him with a simple sword. He highlights that Xebec stayed silent in the face of so many injustices, and that even he considers it lamentable. These words start to irritate Xebec, but soon the irritation grows into uncontrollable fury. The herald then asks if the swordsman's anger is directed at him or himself for turning his back after witnessing the atrocities committed. Indignant, Xebec demands to know what Azadin really knows about it. Azadin calmly asks if Xebec knows the constellations in the night sky and how each one has a different meaning. Xebec, bewildered, asks why Azadin is talking about this, questioning his intent. Azadin explains that humans can see the same thing, but their perceptions can be completely distinct. For some, a constellation may represent the protagonist of a myth, while for others, it may just be a faint, pale light in the darkness. In the same way, the view of the devastating events may seem different to Xebec compared to the other soldiers. While touching Jan's corpse, Xebec lowers his sword, saying that the situation is different because he couldn't do anything. His eyes are full of regret. He looks at his sword and then at his reflection, saying that as a knight of the king's church, you should revere those who carry the blood of the divine kings. Azadin says that if Xebec felt pity for the girl, he doesn't wish to fight him. Then he cuts the ropes on Jan and says that his sword is not his enemy. Xebec seems to be dealing with conflicting emotions, while Azadin also picks up Sophia's corpse, asking if he has a shovel. Intrigued, Xebec asks why he needs one and if he intends to bury these people, calling it madness. Azadin responds that he will give them a funeral. Xebec thinks for a moment and says that Klee wants the bodies hung on trees to send a message and prevent others from repeating what they did. Burying the bodies would be like directly challenging him. Azadin then says that if Xebec doesn't have a shovel, he cannot be helped, and begins to dig with his hands. Xebec, after a pause, tightens his grip on his blade and drives it into the ground. Azadin watches, surprised, as Xebec also begins to dig, and together together, they prepare individual graves for Safia and Yan. After some time, both finish the task, even placing small crosses on the graves. During this time, the herald says a prayer, asking the Archangel of wisdom, courage, and mercy to care for their souls. Zepek, intrigued, asks why someone from the Herald Clan would use a prayer from the Order of the Saviors. With a carefree gesture, the archer explains that he simply appreciates their ideology. The swordsman comments that it is reckless to abandon the fate of his original clan and serve a faith considered heretical. In response, the other says that if one doesn't defend what they believe is right, then their birth will have no meaning at all. Curious, Zebek asks what exactly Azadin finds so fascinating about the Order of the Saviors. As he responds, Azadin turns around, taking something from his waist and beginning to adjust it. It's clear that it was a bow, worn by him like a belt, which he now prepares to use. He points it in the direction where an individual is approaching, believing that it is the one he serves. Zebek, worried, looks at the same spot and soon recognizes Klee and his soldiers. Klee, with a sarcastic smile, asks if Zebek liked the peasants so much, teasing that he should have told him before. Laughing, Klee admits that for a peasant, she was really good, but nothing more than that. Zebek comments that he should have guessed that Klee would take care of the girl, noting that he would face about 20 soldiers and wouldn't stand a chance of winning. The commander of the soldiers, still mocking, asks who the bastard next to Zebek is, while the archer begins to draw his bow. The string is released and the arrow flies directly through the ranks, hitting a man in the rear, piercing his eye. The soldier screams in agony, trembling and holding his head with his hands as chaos ensues. Zebek watches the precision of the shot, realizing that the archer struck a man from the other side of the formation. Without hesitation, he prepares another arrow and shoots again, aiming at the soldiers in the front line. The men try to raise their shields to block the attack, but one of them feels a sharp pain in his groin as he is hit. The soldier drops the shield, which cracks as it hits the ground and falls to his knees, immediately bleeding. The arrow had struck his femoral artery, leaving him in critical condition. The soldiers panic, while Zebek comments that the arrow seemed to curve like a snake as it passed through the shield. Amidst the confusion, the archer finally answers the previous question. He explains that he appreciates the Order of the Saviors because of the idea that a person's worth is not determined by birth, but by their beliefs and actions. Azadin states that someone with the blood of the divine king who commits atrocities against their people cannot be considered noble. Irritated, Klee watches as the archer prepares another arrow, saying that he shouldn't even be considered human. Then he shouts loudly, questioning what a mere peasant could possibly know. Unperturbed, the archer does not react to Klee's shout, which orders Zebek to kill that bastard immediately. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air, and Zebek, looking up, watches as the archer ascends, illuminated by the moonlight. Calmly, he prepares his bow as the soldiers, terrified, ask if they will be the next ones. An arrow is fired, hitting a man in the eye. Quickly, 2 more arrows are ready for a double shot. With precision, both arrows are fired and he begins to fall back to the ground. The soldiers, dazed, rush to intercept his landing, but the warrior lands on their spears, using them as support to stand. He shoots 3 arrows simultaneously, bringing down 3 more enemies. One of the arrows passes so close to Klee that it brushes his face. Frightened, Klee realizes that although many have been hit, only the man who was injured in his private parts has died. He now understands that the archer is only incapacitating the soldiers, allowing them to survive. A ghostly aura is released, enveloping the battlefield as cover to continue shooting and neutralizing the adversaries. Suddenly, he appears behind Klee, identifying himself as a herald. The enemy leader, overcome with terror, loses control, while the soldiers around him panic upon realizing his ruthless nature. Klee turns around to hear the voice behind him, but when the archer tries to retrieve more arrows, he finds that they are all used up. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Klee tries to attack him, but is struck directly in the face. Calmly, the archer dismantles his bow and tucks it back into his waist. As Klee screams in pain from the wound to his eye, one of the soldiers tries to attack from behind, but the blow is deflected. The archer responds with a punch to the attacker's face and grabs his sword. He explains that he used the arrows to reduce the number of enemies and challenges the soldiers to face him if they are brave enough. Soon after, he plunges the sword into the ground of one of the men, castrating him with the blow, which provokes a surprised "oh" from the others. Turning to the soldiers, it becomes clear how unpredictable and dangerous he is. The owl watches this scene as the battlefield fills with blood. Slowly advancing toward Klee, the archer states that he didn't make him wait too long. For someone like Klee, who has always caused pain to others, he explains that what happened here is far from being a sufficient punishment. Suddenly, the enemy casts a spell, releasing an intense yellow light that blinds everyone around. One of the soldiers comments that he is losing his vision, his eyes showing the effects of the spell. However, the archer seems immune to the magic. Klee, in a mocking tone, suggests that his noble blood is incomparable to his opponent's. In response, the blade swings forward and Klee's blood flies through the air. Realizing what has happened, Klee screams as he notices he has also been castrated, while blood pours down his clothes. Desperate, he begins to cry, asking what just happened. The archer, laughing, asks if he has mental problems, as he should clearly understand the situation. Taking advantage of the moment, he grabs Klee by the hair as the noble, frantic, offers money, women, and any anything else the adversary might want. But the response is direct. As the exterminator of holiness, he knows heralds well and is not easily convinced. Desperate, Clay screams for Xebec, who, shamed, claims he cannot help. Still, the noble tries to appeal to his position of prestige, but the effort is futile. After reflecting, the archer states that he will continue to live, which confuses his enemy. He then raises his blade and moves toward Klee's remaining eye. The blow blinds him, and he passes out in unbearable pain. Calmly, the archer declares that even without a contractor, he considers himself to have fulfilled the Emperor's law. Xebec then begins to draw his blade from its sheath. He, a knight of the Church of the King, cannot allow someone who speaks of the Emperor's law to live, regardless of whether they have committed a just act or not. However, masked, he lowers his blade and states that he is not like the other knights of the Church of the King. Xebec shouts, asking if Azadin is insulting him. The latter responds that he is not insulting him, but praising him, as the other knights of the Church of the King are nothing more than scoundrels who were exiled from their homes due to their inheritance. Before Xebec can retort, Azadin continues, asking if he will be able to follow him, while letting out a laugh. Curious, Xebec asks what he means, but Azadin has already disappeared with his ghostly aura, saying that if fate allows, they will meet again. When the aura dissipates, Xebec sees no sign of Azadin, only spotting Klee lying on the ground. Xebec reflects that no one has been able to kill Azadin, the herald, and that, on the contrary, they have suffered permanent losses. He admits that what Azadin said about the knights was correct, and that this also applies to him. Xebec smiles slightly, feeling the weight lifting from his chest, for at least Sophia and Jan have been properly avenged. The scene shifts to a group of people bowing before their lord, begging to be exempt from taxes. They explain that everyone is fleeing the village, leaving behind an abandoned place. Those who stayed are starving and returning as undead, wandering the streets. The village is infested with thieves and monsters, and no one can afford to pay the taxes due to the terrible situation. The lord waits for a moment, seeming irritated, before calling them shameless. Then none other than Klee's father, Margrave Kazel, appears. He comments that at this rate, they'll soon be asking for food too. The civilians, now fearful, realize that he is right. The man leading the group looks at him, begging, saying they are at their limit. Kazel responds that nothing will change the humble blood running through their veins, and if they wish, he can offer them relief. Surprised, they ask if he will really do this, and he smiles, affirming that he will, as long as, if they fail to fulfill his request, everyone in the room will be hanged. The question of whether they would agree goes unanswered, while the group remains silent, shocked. They exchange glances, unsure of how to react. Kazel begins to cast some sort of magic with his hand and tells them not to be afraid. He assures them that what they ask for is nothing more than a single page, as the nature of the grimoire he holds. The leader explains that they are ignorant about magic and do not know how to locate it. Kazel laughs, saying that even fools like them will be able to find the grimoire if they simply desire it. He says the grimoire will respond to their call and reveal itself. If they manage to bring him a page from the grimoire, he will exempt the village from taxes for 3 years and provide 50 bushels of wheat, barley, and oats. The civilians are surprised by the offer, and one of the men asks for at least the name of the grimoire so they can look for it. Kazel clenches his fists, making the magic disappear, and looks at them with a threatening expression. He reveals that the grimoire is a copy of the Book of the Divine King. The citizens, still shocked, leave, while Kazel remains seated on his throne. A snake slithers through the curtains and climbs up to his side. When he looks down, he sees the snake transform into an imposing woman, who says she thinks mentioning the book's name was a great imprudence. Kazel calls her absurd, stating that he knows her group is searching for the grimoire and that, in any case, rumors about it will soon spread across the continent. Therefore, it would be smarter to use the poor to find a page for her group. He asks what she wants by revealing herself. The response comes with the revelation that she has come to tell the truth, revealing that her son was a victim of all this. Before she can finish, Kazel interrupts, saying that Clay's forces would fall easily since Xebec is with them. The woman then reveals that the true opponent was actually a member of the Herald Clan. Kazel's eyes light up, and he asks firmly if she is sure. The confirmation comes with the explanation that they are after the Book of the Divine King, because to free themselves from the curse of their duty, they will also meet it. Kazel asks if her son is dead, and the woman replies that he is not, but that he lost the sight in both eyes and was castrated. Visibly irritated, Kazel listens to her question, and she asks what he will do. He instructs her to send soldiers to their neighborhood to kill the herald who was sent. The woman responds that she understands and will contact the commander. Kazel grabs her hand, telling her she should ask someone else to do this, and that, if her son was castrated, he can simply make another, while pulling her to his lap. She begins to smile, but this might get awkward to show in the rest of the video. Just kidding, we didn't see anything anyway, as the scene jumps to another place in the territory. Azadin is there, showing that he has no water. He sighs, saying this is bad and that, at this rate, he'll die of thirst. He asks the owl why he had to put on a show, saying he could have done it in 2 days, calling her foolish. The owl questions if he dares speak so impertinently with the Emperor's mouth. Azadin looks at the owl with a confused expression before beginning to explain in an entire wall of text how the heralds came to be. He explains that this happened happened because the emperor died without a plan, which cursed all the heralds. He continues, hitting the owl with facts and logic, asking why he had to put on a show. He mentions that he was forced to drop everything he was doing to run here as quickly as possible. Because of that, he is now about to die of thirst while still being hungry. He doesn't even think he'll be able to digest it because he is too dry. The owl apologizes, saying her servant will arrive soon. She notices something and wonders what is happening as Azadin reaches for his blade. Azadin wonders if it is a ghost as he sees a group forming before him. It is none other than Safiya and the others who were hung on the trees, all bowing respectfully to him. Azadin greets them, saying that this land has neither the light of the king's virtue nor the blessing of the archangels. Therefore, it is not good to stay there for too long. He states that he has paid his dues and must now proceed to the afterlife. Safiya then points behind him, and when he turns around, Azadin sees a well. He asks if they are trying to give him water, saying that they don't have to, and that they might as well go rest. Then he looks into the well and begins to pull up the bucket, saying that he can hardly wait to drink some water. However, as soon as he reaches the top, he is surprised, asking what that is as he sees a page in the sand. We learn more about the Herald Clan, which originally was a race known as Aragasa. They crossed a massive typhoon from another continent and landed on the Wybris continent. The 8 divine kings of the Yagas family ruled the Wybris continent and occupied 8 thrones spread across the land. However, during that era, a single person monopolized each of these thrones, while the other 7 holy kings, who were brothers, were all subjugated by the emperor of the Yaslat family. We see him sitting on his throne. We learn that Emperor Yaslat wanted to rid himself of all the remnants of the deceased holy kings. Meanwhile, the outsiders, the Aragasa, who eventually became heralds, needed land to settle, and the emperor gave the outsiders the grimoires. The Song of the Yellow Bird is a spirit called the voice of the emperor in exchange. The outsiders signed a contract with the emperor and became heralds. With that, the hands of the Aragasa were ruthlessly stained with the blood of the gods, and they became the sword and executioners of the emperor. They personally executed the wicked nobles who went against the emperor's law and prospered. It was the most horrendous sin the citizens of Wybris could commit, as they believed in the afterlife within this cycle of eternal life. After some time, the emperor died and the empire was once again split into 8 separate kingdoms. The Aragasa were despised by everyone in Wybris, and the heralds fell, being called soulless because they had sold their souls for that pouch. Despite this, they faced an unexpected problem. The contract with the emperor was still in effect even after his death. The heralds needed to serve the emperor as the contract was eternal. All the heralds were bound by this. Azadin picks up the paper, saying that this is a page from the Book of the Divine King, feeling the power of the emperor coming from it. He then pushes Safiya and Yan aside, telling them to rest in peace while he analyzes the page. Azadin wonders if this means that by collecting this, he might escape his duty curse. The owl responds that it is rude to call it a curse, as it is an honorable contractual duty. Azadin comments that he can't believe it ended up in his hands, and that fate is no joke. Then the bird asks if he isn't happy, as this is something all heralds desire. The heralds have 2 objectives. 1, fulfill the service duties and collect 100,000 gold coins, or 2, acquire the Book of the Divine King. If they accomplish any of these objectives, it will escape the duty curse. Azadin states that this is part of his goal, but he's concerned about the spreading of this around the world. The reason the Book of the Divine King was destroyed in the first place was because of his father. As he continues walking through the desert, we see someone observing him from a distance. It seems to be a blonde woman. She tells another person that it's him, and that he is the son of the worst traitor of the clan. Azadin is also talented, powerless, and stupid. She asks a man beside her if he really can't use magic, as the rumors say, claiming that he is cursed. The man says he doesn't know if he's cursed, but he knows for sure that Azadin can't use magic. But the woman comments that she heard he wet the bed until he was 8 and can't even tie a bowstring. She doubts Azadin will ever be able to fulfill the herald duty. The man calls her, and we discover the woman's name is Midian. The guy suggests they should go back, as there's no need for her to work for the lowest ranking herald when she's related to the contractor. Midian draws an arrow, saying she wants to test her skills, but the man with her says they can't attack a herald. She asks why it matters, as if she wins, she'll take his place so they can't lose. But it will be bad if he dies, so she'll take the tip off the arrow. The man tells her that he's still a student of the ancient Kazas, and there's always a what if in every situation. She says it doesn't matter. No matter how incredible Kazas is, a fool is still a fool, even if they train for 10 or even 100 years. Midian simply hates that the son of a traitor is a herald, and worse, he can't use magic, taking up space for competent people like herself to not become heralds. She then shoots an arrow from where she stands, flying directly into Azadin's back. Midian immediately hides behind a rock, but wonders if she hit him or not. Hit as she peeks over, only be struck directly in the forehead with a stone as Azadin jumps. He begins crouching while looking at her, asking if she was the one who shot the arrow. We see that he caught it in his quiver. Midian tells him it was a greeting, but wonders when he arrived, as she couldn't sense his presence at all. Then she realizes where he caught it, saying that this is absolutely insane. Azadin asks for their names, and Midian introduces herself, saying she's from the other lineage. Finally, we learn the guy's name, Ishmael. He says they are assistants and came to help him. Azadin asks asks if that's really the case and drops the arrow, saying this doesn't seem like assistance. Midian tells him that his quiver seemed empty, so she just wanted to give him arrows, claiming it would definitely be the best. She says it seems she applied to be his assistant because she was bored of staying in the Holy Land and asked them to go back home, calling them kids. Midian begins to get irritated, saying she's sure she told him she's from the other lineage, to which he responds that lineages mean nothing to heralds, and if she came to work for him, she's now his subordinate, but she shot arrows at him. Perhaps she wants to learn what happens when you do that outside of the Holy Land. She says he's so different from the rumors, asking if he's really the same person others openly mocked and bullied. Azadin tells her to apologize for being rude and that if she wants something from him, she should show respect, whether as a member of Aragasan or as his enemy, asking which one it will be. Grinding her teeth in frustration, she sets her pride aside for a moment, saying she's sorry for her rudeness and lowers her head. Azadin says he accepts her apology, but that she should never shoot anyone with her arrows again, unless she intends to kill them, as weapons are not toys outside of the Holy Land. She says yes, and as Azadin turns away, he tells them he won't say anything bad about them, so they can return to the Holy Land since he doesn't need assistance. Then he realizes he could use this opportunity and asks them if they have any water. It turns out she had set aside her pride for so long while shouting for a duel. Ishmael tries to stop her, telling her that he is truly very dangerous. She says he might be a bit different from the rumors, as he is truly strong and smart, but he would be a big coward if he didn't challenge him just because he's strong. She then formally sends a challenge for his position as a herald while watching him from above. Ishmael begins to cry, saying that now she has done it. Azadin says it's pretty crazy to hear this, and that Ariel was a bad influence on these kids. He states that if she wins, she'll take his position, but wonders if she has any idea what will happen if he wins. Finally, she responds that of course, everything that is hers, including her life, will be his, and that she is prepared. Azadin says that although Ariel is a problem, a bigger problem is her underestimating him. He warns Midian to give up before it's too late, as Ariel is the only one who defeat a herald. Azadin is aware of his bad reputation, but claims he didn't receive this position for nothing. Midian then turns and starts walking away. Ishmael wonders what she's doing. After a while, she says that they are now 100 paces away and challenges him once more. The outland says that the duel is valid and that Azadin must accept the challenge. Both are surprised to hear the voice of the Emperor. Azadin asks if it's serious. Ishmael is terrified and explains that the voice of the Emperor is the spirit sent to every herald. Now the voice of the Emperor is a witness. Refusing the challenge is impossible, and this is not good. Midian tells him to stop worrying, as she just needs to win. After some time, we see them providing water, and Azadin begins drinking it all while they get really dirty. Ishmael, a bit concerned, wonders what's going on with the situation. He says he used a proper archery technique for the battlefield, sacrificing accuracy for the speed of the projectile. This was definitely an extreme form of the Aragasa technique, as he threw a number of stones at Midian. She reacted properly, raising a magical barrier to deflect the stones, but that wasn't enough, as he had more stones prepared. They curve like snakes, as he demonstrated earlier. His skill with the bow was impressive. Midian did her best, blocking what she could. We see one of the stones graze her head, almost knocking her down. Ishmael says he thought he couldn't use magic, but Azadin used the beauty of nature, a yellow heron, asking how he's sitting there just swallowing it all. Ishmael tells him not to mention it, as it gets worse, seeing that Midian is out of breath. A surprise attack comes from the sky, which she avoids but rushes forward, saying that now she knows where his position is. She looks at a stone, and sure enough, Azadin steps out from behind it. Midian says that her prediction was perfect, and now she's got him, swinging the blade forward, cutting him in half. It's nothing but some of his miss as we see his form dissipated. Midian is confused as Ishmael yells at her to turn around. She does so, raising another magic circle, but when Azadin pushes her hand and grabs her, pulling back his fist, he says that it's over now. We see her with a worried expression as she is sent flying into the nearby rock. Ishmael seems irritated and starts yelling her name, saying he can't believe that someone from the bloodline of a traitor just hit a son of the noble lineage. He runs to her, saying that this is unforgettable, asking how someone inferior like him could do this. But the owl speaks, saying that with this, the duel is over. The owl says that Midian challenged his position and her fate is now in his hands. Ishmael, due to his interference in the duel, must also become the property of the herald, along with Midian. With an expression full of rage and humiliation, she reaches for her waist, grabs a dagger, and immediately tries to stab herself in the throat, but Azadin throws a stone, knocking the dagger from her hands. After the dagger hits the ground, he says he knew she would try something foolish. She falls to her knees, feeling desperate. Azadin says that she doesn't even have the right to die now that she's lost the duel. She can only die when he dies or when he wants her to do so, asking if she really challenged him to a duel without knowing something like this. Of course she says yes, which only makes her look irritating, as she is now a loser. Azadin, to himself, says that she is certainly an interesting child. At least he throws the water sack back to Ishmael, saying that he assumes this was enough to teach them a lesson, and that he will now release both of of them. They look confused, asking if he's serious. He responds that he just wants to pretend the duel never happened, as it would be bad for them if it was recorded. Both sit there realizing he's right, but saying nothing. Then, Azadin leaves, making his way back across the desert. But, of course, they are still following him. He says that he already told them he doesn't need slaves, and that he gave them their freedom, so they could go back to the Holy Land. Midian says that he just got a young, beautiful, and talented girl as his slave, but will still let her go, asking if he's crazy. Ishmael shudders, saying that this is serious secondhand embarrassment. Azadin says that he doesn't know about the beautiful part, but if she were as talented as Ariel, she never would have lost. There are many guys who like younger girls, as there are many cultures with early marriage customs. Although he's not one of them, it would be better to think before challenging someone to a duel next time. It would be better if she never challenged anyone to a duel again. And if anyone wants to fight, she should just kill him. Ishmael says that he talks much more than expected, but it doesn't seem like he's saying all of this with genuine concern. He then turns around, noticing Midian trembling, and we see her blushing, saying that this is new. Ishmael just wonders what the hell is going on. Now we learn about the service contract. The Emperor and the Aragasa clan, where each provides the other with what they need, and any traitor will meet a horrible death. This contract used to be a symbol of loyalty and a mark of honor, but after the Emperor's death, it became a terrible curse, as we already know. Even after his death, they are still forced to honor this contract. What seemed like an endless cycle of servitude for this clan finally began to show signs of breaking when the Herald Clan intervened in the Terrasser Kingdom's succession war. The Aragasa ensured victory in the succession war and obtained a copy of the Book of the Divine King. However, a notorious traitor stole the book and fled, and his name was Acre. We see some men shouting at him from atop a cliff, telling him he must return what he stole or else they will curse him. He needs to deliver his copy of the book or else they will torture him. They threatened Acre with everything they could imagine. Their hopes shattered and disappeared when Acre scattered the book in the heart of the World Mountain Range. Thus, Acre became the first person to die from the curse of the contract due to the curse. Because of his curse, he birthed twins in a male body. Now the question remains, how was this possible? These twins were Azadin and Ariel. Ironically, Ariel became the strongest herald in the clan's history, while Azadin was considered a fool. Midian just wonders who spread such a stupid rumor, as he is nothing like they say. Azadin then tells them that he already said he has no intention of taking them, so he asks them to stop following him. Midian says they aren't following him, they just have something to deliver. It's a letter from the regional chief of Salasma. She then says they don't like him very much, asking what it could be. He decides to ignore half of it, as it's just insults, but mentions that copies of the book have been appearing recently, and that he needs to retrieve them, which will be reflected in his performance evaluation. And judging by what's written there, the other heralds must be aware of this copy. Azadin wonders if this is true and asks them if they were aware of the copies of the book, to which both respond yes. Midian says that she knows her father betrayed the clan, and before she can finish the sentence, Ishmael screams and kicks her in the leg with a shut up. She asks why and simply stares at him. She says she really doesn't care about this, just confirming that he didn't know this. For now, he will have to go to Salasma to find the regional chief and thanks them for delivering the letter. Midian says they're going to the same destination, so they can just follow him and tell him what's been happening in the clan too. He replies that he doesn't own the road, so they're free to do whatever they want. As they walk, she quickly runs ahead, happy, while Ishmael sighs in relief. Sometime later, they finally arrive at the edge of the desert and are about to enter a grassland area. Now they also have mounts. While Azadin sleeps, he wakes up and stretches, telling the other two to get up as well. They continue walking with their new mounts, and he tells them to just spring ahead. Both are still sleepy, but we see water for the first time in a long while, and they begin to fill their canteens. And when Azadin puts down that giant bag, someone shouts at them, asking who gave them permission to take water from his spring. He himself says that he has no intention of fighting, asking what they want. The man says he wants all of them, smiling maliciously. Azadin just wants to confirm, asking if there's no room for negotiations. However, the man responds that he certainly talks too much for an adult man and asks what's wrong with a mask, if he's a clown. The leader then tells his men to go capture the girl and kill the other two. Of course, they exit the scene, and judging by their poses, it seems like they were knocked out. The others begin bowing and apologizing, saying they are innocent people. Ishmael says he thought they were bandits. They explain that they were just recently called up as the children of Marcus Kazel are recruiting people to find a book. Everyone wonders how they should find something like that and therefore wander aimlessly due to sheer bad luck. The guy corrects himself, saying it's a great stroke of luck to meet someone as noble as they are. Midian asks if they could just be thieves making up excuses. Azadin says he doubts that, as this isn't a road where merchants and travelers usually pass. Midian adds that, in that case, they will have to kill them quietly. But Azadin says he doesn't kill without a reason. She's surprised, and Ishmael comments that it's fair to kill them even if they are really good people. There's a chance that could be exposed if they leave them alive. However, the other man says that doesn't mean he should kill them for his own comfort, and that all people deserve a second chance. One of the would-be bandits begins to say that he's right and that people's lives are important, expressing that he expected this from someone so noble. The leader begins laughing, saying he's the best and guaranteeing that great fortune will fall upon him and his family for his mercy. The masked man then tells him to shut up. Ishmael thinks about how he often sees people who refuse to kill, but he didn't expect to see someone from the Herald Clan act like this. Azadin strikes the man directly in the face just like he did with the others, and we see the guys explode. He comments that it was a good hit and that he could feel the guys being crushed. He then warns them not to move too much, as one wrong move could cause not only their eyes to explode but probably their brains too. They say he promised to let them live, but Azadin responds that that's their life. Although he has inflicted permanent damage so they can't harm others, he will ensure they won't regret it immediately. They wonder what the hell they just heard, but Midian and Ishmael just stand there, saying it's not that bad. As they all watch, sometime later the guy starts running and ends up crushing 3 of his nuts and blinding the others. One of the victims of the Nutcracker says that if he ever finds him again, he'll make sure he pays for it. But we see a giant thick hand reaching forward, placing its palm on the guy's head, only to be ripped off by a giant creature resembling a troll. They turn around horrified as the guy is lifted into the air, and the troll says he found food for himself. He starts throwing them into his giant basket, saying that today has been a really good hunt. Then he grabs another, saying that he won't escape, and throws him into his basket as well. The goblins begin eating the guy whose head was exploded, as he also had to feed his friends. Soon, they spot a village on the horizon, and the ogre trolls begin to smile, saying that at the fortress, there will be plenty of food. We return as they continue riding their mounts. Midian says that at first she thought he was just going slowly, so she was surprised, but she thinks it wasn't a bad tactic, as they even recovered all their weapons. Azadin says it's hard for someone to understand others without having been in the same position, and that losing an eye has greater consequences than one might imagine. The people who would have been victimized by their incursions are not people who fear, and he's sure it's a good opportunity for them to regret. Ishmael is surprised that he gave them the chance to repent. It's funny that a herald is giving another person a chance to purify their soul. They begin to dismount, and Azadin says that the conversation is bothering him. Midian asks what he means. He says that rumors say that Marquis Kazel is looking for a copy of the Book of the Divine King. Ishmael comments that Kazel lost the succession fight, asking if he thinks Kazel is trying to rise in the hierarchy by using the book. Azadin says that seems pretty dangerous, so he'll have to take off his mask, as it shows he's a herald, and they'll need to be cautious until they leave Kazel's territory. We see the faces of both of them, completely surprised, realizing that our friend Azadin doesn't even have eyes, as all we see is a scar on his face. Both stand there and mouths agape, while he puts on a cloak to further disguise himself. Ishmael says that he doesn't seem to have any difficulty, even though he can't see, asking how that's possible. Azadin responds that he doesn't know either. Since he was born, he has been able to see without eyes. Midian runs up to him and he wonders what she wants, telling her to speak her mind. She says that she just thinks he probably looks better with the scar. He asks what she means, and she responds that he was probably very handsome and then had an accident where he lost his eyes. She thinks it's better to have scars like this than a handsome face with ugly eyes. Ishmael says she's being very rude, but Azadin comments that she's saying the same thing as the one who caused the wound on his face. She is surprised and asks who did it, and he says it was none other than Arail. We see his face bleeding. Azadin explains that she found it strange that he didn't have what should have been there, and that she at least can imagine there used to be eyes where there should have been. But when it healed, she cut his face, saying it would be better this way. Because of that, he can pretend to be blind and didn't face any problems when he was alone. Midian says that this just means they need to pretend he's blind too. He responds that it's fine as they continue walking toward the same fortress the ogre creature had seen as well. That night, they finally arrive, and the guards are inspecting the front. Ishmael says he can see the gates, but the line seems pretty long. Azadin comments that it's been a while since he was here at the East Village Gate. Midian says it's also the village where the Imperial Road begins, and it's a good starting point for their journey, telling her to be quiet as he is on a pilgrimage, one only, and they are just a few kids who happen to join him. Then he notices something and calls Ishmael a puppy, asking if it was like this when he was last here. Because the guards are doing a very thorough inspection, even stealing some things and putting them in their pockets. Midian says they're just stealing, and Ishmael responds that it wasn't this bad when he was here last time. Azadin says now he sees they're looking for something, and if they're paying close attention, he might have an idea. One of the men in line asks if he can't see, and Azadin says no. It's just that these two are on a pilgrimage with him. The guy responds that it must be really hard, and Azadin asks what is going on. The guy asks if he hasn't heard the rumors that there are copies of the Book of the Divine King circulating. The rumors say that some member of the Herald Clan made copies of the book after stealing it, and these copies are appearing everywhere. All the bastards of Kazel are hunting the book now, and it's a complete mess. Azadin says this means there is more than just that loser he met. The guy asks what he means, but Azadin replies that it was nothing. This isn't good as he has one of the book's pages, so it will be annoying to deal with. The man being robbed says that he needs the money to feed his family, mentioning they're looking for the Book of the Divine King and asking why they're taking his money. The guard punches him in the face, telling him to let go, causing the man to fall to the ground. He then says that a grimoire can take many forms and appearances, and who knows if his grimoire is in the form of money. They'll inspect him closely and return it if it's not the book they're looking for. The man's daughter then steps forward, saying that this is theft and asking them to give it back. They begin insulting her, asking if she's really answering them. If she is, it means she needs a beating. Her father hugs her, saying they're threatening a child with violence. They all tell him to shut up, hitting him in the stomach. She starts comforting her father, and the guard says he should educate his daughter better. Then they ask the next people to step forward. We see Midian very angry. Ishmael asks what they should do, and Midian wonders if they should fight, but Azadin says to wait. A man then runs, whispering something to the guard, which scares him. Azadin realizes that this is not a good thing, as everyone starts panicking, grabbing what they can and running inside. Everyone else wonders what's going on. That even blind, he tells them that an ogre has been spotted nearby. Curious, they ask what he means, and Azadin explains that he has very good hearing and has heard about the ogre. That's why they ended up closing the gates. We see them all looking worried. Everyone starts banging on the door, saying they can talk about it and asking to be let in. Next, we see a carriage as a man approaches it. We are introduced to another of Kazel's bastard sons named Jarkiv. He asks if they closed the gates, and they confirm that they did. Jarkiv says that since they confirm there are no copies of the book there, they should just leave with what they took. A man runs up to Jarkiv, asking what he should do now. Jarkiv tells him that they need to repel the ogre and any other monsters approaching the gate, as they've been trained enough to handle him. The man worries as they were only trained for a day, and Jarkiv says that at least they should let the people outside in, and he'll command the defense from there. Jarkiv states that he's not even a knight, asking what he's capable of. The man doesn't want to hear this from a knight who's running away, but Jarkiv says he'll leave it to him, and that this is good enough while they ride. The man watches and gets nervous as he can feel the ground shaking. Nearby birds also start fleeing, showing that something is approaching. We now see one of the aspiring bandits in the basket, asking if they're going to be eaten, and where they were going. The trolls march toward the village while high above, a man watches the trail of calamity approaching. His only reaction is to look shocked, not knowing what will happen to everyone present at that location. Not only him, but everyone around Azadin watch the massive destruction approaching. Not far away, we discover that the people decided to leave. They hold torches while walking down the Trail of Tears. A woman turns around with a lantern and tells Azadin that the path will become more difficult from here on. She hands Ishmael a lantern, asking him to guide his younger sister and uncle. Since she had an extra lantern, she believes it will help him. He thanks her, saying he will take care of his uncle, so she doesn't need to worry. Midian laughs while patting Azadin's back, commenting that it seems people act kinder when he pretends to be blind. Back at the gates before they leave, we see the man who had been talking to Jarkiv saying that the knights and mercenaries have fled. However, he reminds everyone that they need to protect the village. He asks those who can fight to stay and help, and mentions that it's also valid just to provide support. This way, while defending the village, the others can escape more quickly. The man who was previously beaten tells his daughter, Cosette, that he will fight to protect her. She questions him, saying he can barely cut an apple. Azadin reflects on the people who decided to stay and fight. Midian comments that it's unbelievable that knights whose purpose is to serve the people are abandoning everyone. To her, it's disgraceful and pathetic. Knowing something, Azadin says that, although they are from Wybris, it seems that instead of protecting others, they'd find it noble to stay and fight. Midian agrees, although she comments that it would be strange for an Aragasa to sympathize with the people of Wybris. Azadin says that he feels the same way. Then, he warns that it's time for them to separate. With his ghostly aura beginning to show, he disappears, leaving only his staff behind. They shout, asking where he went. Back at the fortress, we see everyone on guard. Cosette's father tells the captain that there are too many enemies. We find out that, in addition to goblins, there are orcs accompanying the ogre. The ogre roars, revealing that his name is Goldo. He throws his basket full of people on the ground and says it serves as a storage of meat, sustaining his food for a long time. He suggests that investing in his food market would be a good idea. Although his words are simple, like human village, big strong. Goldo lifts his foot and slams it on the ground, declaring that he will take as many as he can. The captain points out that the ogre is the leader and orders everyone to fire arrows at him. As the bows are fired, most of the arrows don't reach the castle. However, some of them hit Goldo. A small goblin with a staff smiles behind the basket and tells Goldo to take the chance and break the gate. The entire army begins to advance. The captain shouts that they need to take care of the enemies charging. The arrows continue to fly, but the goblins use their shields to protect themselves. One of the goblins raises his axe and starts hitting the gate. Goldo grabs a large rock nearby, runs, and throws it at the wall, causing damage even to his own army. The people on the other side of the gate do their best to keep it standing. The captain begins to panic, shouting that they need to attack them. Cosette's father raises his bow in the air, prepared to act, hoping that his daughter has moved far enough away so that when they inevitably die, she will still be safe. We still see the small shaman behind the basket, preparing another spell as the fire shines in his staff. He realizes it is the right moment and casts the spell directly into the sky, saying that the wand responded and that the Book of the Divine King is present doesn't, as this is the only reason it was activated. The shaman is stomped on the face, falling to the ground. Azadin uses the basket to fly up high above Goldo, who is already preparing another rock. Goldo throws it directly toward Cosette's father and another villager, and we see the explosion happen. However, Azadin manages to get them out of the danger's way in time. He releases them, and the captain is surprised to see someone coming to help them. Azadin says that he will help them defend the gate, but the captain wants to know who he is. He then replies that he's just a messenger from the Emperor passing through. They start to feel terrified, asking if he means a member of the Herald Clan. Before they can get an answer, he's already ready with his bow. Still fighting, he leaps off the castle wall and shoots 2 quick arrows directly into Goldo's eyes, blinding him as he screams in pain. Goldo starts slamming the ground, saying he will kill him, and ends up killing his own allies. The man lands on his head while Goldo continues swinging his arms blindly. He also steps forward, crushing the goblins beneath him. Azadin comments that this is exactly what he expected. He is pleased that the creature is so stupid, so he pulls more arrows and shoots, killing some goblins. The captain wonders if he is really a sanctity killer, and why he would be helping unless he had been hired. The basket falls, and when Azadin looks at it, he sees that one of the amateur bandits from earlier is still alive. The man crawls out, tears in his eyes, completely terrified. What he sees in front of him is the shaman, who everyone thought was dead, slowly transforming. He talks about the book of the Divine King while drooling, and his arm begins to grow in a grotesque and deformed way. The shaman declares that he will be the king of the claws and transforms into a kind of monster with tentacles and terrifying teeth. He keeps chanting that he will be the king of the claws as he seems ready to devour someone. Then he is decapitated, and we see only parts of the tentacled monster on the ground. Azadin comments that this is going to be a problem as the monster begins to expand and fire. We see that one of the monster's tentacles begins to lash forward toward Goldo, and then he realizes it too. So he jumps off its head, leaving only Goldo to be eaten as the monster begins to tear him apart. Goldo screams, saying it hurts, while trying his best to crawl away. He says that he likes to eat, but doesn't like being eaten, as we watch the monster swallow Goldo completely, like a snake. Azadin lands on the ground, watching the monster as it begins to slowly transform into a different shape. It keeps transforming into something else. All the villagers seem terrified, and Azadin recognizes it as Godkin Kurt, the king of the claws. The monster appears swollen, and the shaman from before emerges from it, holding his staff. He starts laughing and smiling as the staff lights up once again, firing a beam and guiding it to the page. Out of nowhere, he shoots at Azadin, and he wonders if he's going after the page. The shaman says that the servants of Yegas must deliver the book to him, and if they do, he will kill them quickly, without pain. Before he can finish his sentence, an arrow flies through him, nearly finishing the job. We see that Azadin didn't even give him the chance to deliver a monologue. Kurt starts getting irritated with this, and when Azadin turns around, he realizes that he has no more arrows but knows he is going after the page. Kurt then attacks Azadin with one of his tentacles, which Azadin dodges, asking why they are looking for copies of the Book of the Divine King anyway. He continues dodging his attacks, but of course the allies aren't safe either, as they are being hit by crossfire. One of them even gets showered with purple liquid, which begins to burn him. Kurt yells, calling him insolent, as he lashes out with even more tentacles while Azadin runs from him. He realizes where he's running. It's a sword, and it blocks his path. Azadin grabs the sword, realizing he needs to fight. He turns around, raising the sword to fight against the tentacles. Of course, he's not just skilled with the bow and arrow, as he demonstrated earlier, but also very good with the sword, as he begins sending the creature's claws flying through the air, one after the other, advancing. He says that these fangs are too big for its body as they fall to the ground. He continues, saying that fangs with superficial roots are weak. Kurt tells him to shut up, reminding him that he is the king of the claws after all, sending even more, thinking that quantity is better than quality. The sword is then corroded by that purple liquid and throws it away, saying he knew it wouldn't last long. Kurt takes this chance to attack with even more force, seeing that Azadin no longer has a weapon. Azadin says that secretly, he's working at a loss by doing this without even receiving gold coins. The villagers decide it's finally time to help him, and we see them launching a barrage of arrows forward. This begins pushing Kyoraid backward, away from Azadin, giving him time. The captain says they have to help the Herald, no matter what happens. They still say that helping the Herald clan seems a little strange, and if the Church of the King hears about it, they will be accused and executed. He says they were abandoned by these same people, asking why they should fear their punishment when they abandoned them. They end up realizing he's right, and Cosette's father pulls out his bow, saying he doesn't want to die here as he launches the first arrow. He prepares another, saying they're just attacking monsters, and after killing it, they can go after the Herald clan member or whatever comes next. Everyone starts agreeing with him, saying that this is the perfect plan, and that's why they decided to help him in the first place. While Kurt is being bombarded with arrows, Azadin says they should have given him the arrows from the start. He stretches, saying he thinks it's time to start. He picks up one of the fangs from the ground and throws it forward, making it explode where it lands. He begins to laugh, saying that should be enough. He picks up another and starts firing them quickly, one after the other. It turns out this was what he was planning when he cut the fangs earlier. Kurt starts getting angry, asking how dare he. Azadin asks why he's so mad, saying that he's just returning his fangs. Carrot screams, saying he's going to become an even bigger being than he is now. When Azadin picks up a giant one and throws it forwards, saying that Kira truly understands that he is a sanctity exterminator, we see the arrow pierce directly through Carrot's skull. It's brutal. He then picks up another, saying that his job is to eliminate things like this as he throws it, cutting Kira's head off, which bounces on the ground. We see that in his last moments, he was pure rage. The monster then begins to disintegrate, falling apart into pieces. Azadin says that with this, it's over, and he goes to grab the staff. But here's the captain shouting, calling him a soulless pagan. When he turns around, everyone is pointing their arrows at him. Azadin says that this is pretty rude and that they might make a mistake if they shoot. The captain asks what he's planning and why he helped them with the monsters. The villagers start saying that he probably brought them here. They say that, no matter how they think about it, it's strange that they only appear when he also shows up and that everything is his fault from the very beginning. Azadin thinks about how to respond to this stupid situation. He stands there while they continue to criticize him, saying that he must be the reason they are there. But of course, he doesn't know why the monster showed up either. As everyone knows, he just did his duties according to the gold coins and someone used one to make a request to them. They are surprised, asking who wished for the demon of the gold coin. They start to panic, asking who it could be, saying they know they are fighting, but wishing for the Herald Clan is too much. One of the men asks if this person is present right now, and he replies that he's not obligated to tell them that, nor does he have the authority to do so. Everyone starts to panic, and he asks if he can leave now or if they're going to fight him for the Church of the King, even though they were attacked by the noble bastard clan and abandoned. One of the citizens tells him to stop speaking ill of their faith, and Azadin laughs, saying that of course they are faithful citizens as he walks away. We see the aspiring bandit still alive, asking if it's finally over. He looks up only to see Azadin and is terrified that he survived. Azadin tells him to be nice, as he was given a second chance at life. He starts crying. I really hope he gets good character development. That said, he leaves and jumps off the ground, running toward the castle wall as they point their bows at him. The captain shouts, telling them not to attack. Azadin appears, grabbing a handful of arrows from his large quiver. He says he'll just take a few, asking if that's okay. The captain thanks him, and Azadin calls him a fool, saying that if the right person had known him, he definitely would have been executed. But we see him smiling back on the trail where everyone was walking. The scene is empty as Azadin runs through the forest with the owl right behind him. The owl asks why he lied to them, and he replies that if he had told the truth, they would have lived in fear for getting involved with him. The owl asks if he doesn't resent them as they treated him strangely even after he saved them. He says that humans are weak, but that anyway, they were kind to him when he pretended to be blind, so they deserve praise. However, he's quite tired because he had to run all the way there, and to make matters worse, he did it without receiving a single gold coin. Then he sees something ahead and realizes that it's none other than Midian and Ishmael. Taking advantage of the moment, he mentions that he also hunted a godkin Kurt. They comment that killing a Kurit seems intense, but he responds that, in fact, it wasn't that strong. Ishmael starts reflecting on the situation, saying that he wasted his energy but didn't even get paid for it. Azadin says that Midian told him it's a beautiful thing to help and protect people, and that life isn't fun without the right perspective. Midian laughs, saying that Ishmael was never a fun person and wonders why he's getting beat up. Azadin says that by saying they're alone, he means the other Evacues left them behind. She explains that they tried to stop them at first, but they said they would come back to help them fight against the weak monsters. They even gave them a torch so they wouldn't get lost in the dark, which was kind of them, but they only did it because they didn't know she was Aragasa. Midian starts saying it was only because she's pretty, and Azadin laughs, saying that surely it was because she was a child, not because they thought she was pretty. She says she's 13 years old and mentions a queen in the north who is already married at that age. Azadin then asks if they recognize the staff as he shows it. Midian says it looks like a magic wand. Knowing this, he then reveals that it was what Kurt had. She says she'll have to concentrate hard for that, but at the moment, she doesn't have enough energy. Then she realizes something and asks if he's recognizing her as a subordinate. He replies that she can certainly ask a relative for a favor. Midian says she also wants him to do a favor for her, and he responds that yes, he can inspect her tomorrow. He then jumps off the ground and onto a tree, while she asks where he's going. Azadin says he needs to hurry and that she should follow him. She asks why they're in a hurry, and we see the Evacues again. The woman who was kind to them before sees him and asks when he arrives, saying that the children were looking for him. He says he got a bit lost, but that they're smart kids, so they'll catch up with him soon. More importantly, he heard victory cries from the village. The aunt asks what he means, and he replies that, as they know, he has very good hearing, and that it'll probably be fine if they return to the village for now. He asks if she can signal him from here with something like lantern signals. The aunt thinks about it, and then one of the Evacues shouts, saying that they see something. It's lanterns near the gate, now lit, and the watch committee must have really succeeded. Everyone starts to get happy, and Azadin tells her to send a small group of people to check. When she turns to thank him, she realizes he's completely disappeared, wondering where he went. Of course, he just wanted to help them so they wouldn't be separated from their loved ones. However, he was too lazy for that, and if he lay down, he'd definitely pass out. Then he sees smoke on the mountains and wonders what it is. He decides to go check and soon stops, observing a campfire with soldiers. They are the guys who fled the city. They say that a drought and the presence of an ogre are crazy things to happen again in this territory, and that place is finished. They just need to do a big job and get out of there. Azadin realizes that the bastard son must also be there, inside the only tent with lights on. He sees some valuable items in the boxes and says that he's out of money. The owl responds that he hit the lottery, as it's also ready for him to take all of it. Azadin comments that traveling requires a lot of money, and that this is truly a blessing. Suddenly, they hear Jarkiv shouting, asking if they are playing with him, since his loot has been stolen. Jarkiv says that this is the only reason he hired them. They explain that they were ambushed and didn't even have time to react. The Lord calls one of the men, telling him to say something as it's his responsibility. We see the man eating an apple and saying that if he says yes, then it must definitely be his fault. Jarkiv responds that he will cut the salaries of these two, asking if they have any objections. The man replies that he should do whatever he wants. However, one of his belongings also disappeared, which means it's not just a simple thief. Jarkiv asks what was lost, but the man says he won't tell him, even though it's probably nothing important, and therefore doesn't matter. The man then says that the little thief will probably move on to the next village and suggests that a recruitment order be issued in that village with the Lord's authority. Jarkiv comments that the nearest village is a public station and is run by a noble, so it would be difficult to do that. He asks the man why he's giving him orders, reminding him that he's the boss there. The man smiles and replies that it's fine, he'll just raid that place in his name before stabbing Jarkiv in the stomach with a knife. Jarkiv looks down, terrified, asking why he would do such a thing. Even his men are confused, asking what went wrong. We see the man's eyes glowing green as he tells them not to worry, since that dagger was a gift from a witch, and soon begins to release a purple aura. The dagger transforms into a spider and penetrates Jarkiv's skin. Jarkiv begins to panic. I'd be terrified too. The captain tells him he should be fine for now, and Jarkiv screams, asking what the man did to him. The man then whistles while Jarkiv begins to feel a stabbing pain and falls to the ground. The man tells him to relax, claiming that the spider inside him just gave a little bite, and that he only needs to listen carefully or the spider will start laying eggs inside him. When the eggs hatch, it will surely be quite a sight. Jarkiv asks what the hell the man wants from him, and even the other soldiers seem concerned about what to do. The captain puts his arm around his shoulder and says that he will raid the public station and capture the little rat who stole his precious item. Jarkiv looks absolutely horrified and jumps to another spot. Meanwhile, we see Ishmael and Midian sleeping on their mount. The owl tells them to get their butts up, and we see everyone doing exactly that, listening to it. Midian notices something and calls Azadin, asking why he now has two wands. He replies that when he looted the mercenary supplies yesterday, he found the same one, and it looks almost identical to the one the goblin shaman was using. Azadin tells her to take a look. Ishmael grabs the wand and says he will examine it, as it might be cursed. He begins infusing his mana into it, checking the properties of the wand, and Azadin asks what he sees. Ishmael replies that he sees a mental image of green and black. Azadin comments that if it were the king of the Fang, he should be seeing red mana, asking if it belongs to a different Kurt. Ishmael confirms that it does, explaining that the purpose of the wand is to locate a specific target. He says it's made to point at something as not durable, so it will break easily. However, its creator was definitely very skilled, as despite seeming to have been created in a hurry, its performance far exceeds that of most magical tools. Azadin states that it's a wand created to track the pages of the Divine King's book. Since there's more than one of these, that means he will have to deal with even more trackers for now. He decides to go take a look at the items he just stole. We see Azadin observing the mercenary camp from a tree branch. He comments that the atmosphere has changed drastically since last night, as they are preparing for a battle. His purpose must also be to collect the copy, what the goblin shaman expected them to do after losing the wand, but their retaliation wasn't what he expected. Ishmael and Midian appear and ask Azadin what he saw. He replies that they are planning to attack the next village. Midian observes that it's a public stage station, though Ishmael says the scale of the attack is much bigger than that of a common village. Midian says they can't act recklessly, and that they must have a reason for becoming so desperate. Azadin agrees while we see him putting his disguise on again. He begins walking forward, taking off the mask and holding the wand and the page close to his chest as they head toward the next village. They weren't lying, the village is absolutely packed with people, but the guards aren't doing thorough inspections like the others. One of the guards tells Azadin to be careful as he is blind, and Azadin thanks him. Midian says that she's happy they let blind pilgrims in for free while they walk through the market. Ishmael and Midian seem very happy. Ishmael gets excited, saying that he saw a cart from the Coruscant Vendor Association. Midian says that means they can take a break while looking ahead to the association. Azadin thinks about it, asking if it will be such a good idea as they start walking. Soon we see a flashback of a child talking to Ariel, asking if she is really the youngest herald. The child reminds her that she is still the daughter of a traitor, so she shouldn't be so full of herself. The man explains that the greatest genius of the clan, who became a herald at the age of 3, was how adults referred to Ariel back then. And in his youth, he had to learn the truth of that through a broken ankle. However, that wasn't all, because Ariel was much more than just what the rumors said about her. He found her very beautiful and couldn't take his eyes off her. The man then opens his eyes, wondering what she is doing now. Then he hears a sound from outside and wonders what it is. We go back a few hours earlier when Azadin and the others arrived in the city. They arrive at the Coruscant Merchants Association. The association started as a small network of traders but has grown and is now a large organization. In fact, it is one of the ghost organizations managed by Herald Clan, meaning the Aragasa people. Therefore, all the merchants in the association are children of Aragasanos. We see them looking away from Azadin, who of course is not welcome, as his father is considered a traitor. Azadin says it would be nice if everyone kept quiet today. Midian and Ishmael can hardly wait to take a bath. Then we hear some people shouting at him, asking if he is really the Lord Heralds of the 1008 spirits. They ask if the last 3 months of pretending to be a herald have served him well. He doesn't answer, and they continue mocking him, laughing at the fact that he's a servant, saying that despite that, he certainly has talent. Azadin responds that those kids are not his servants, and that he needs help changing the horseshoes. They agree, saying they can help him, but in a very sarcastic manner. Still, he hands them a bag and asks them to exchange it for money, also asking if they can get some Blue River arrowheads if they're in stock. The man stands right in front of Azadin, saying that he only became a herald thanks to Elder Kasa's recommendation, even with the formal procedures. It doesn't help that he lagged behind in basic training. They continue mocking him, saying that he must have stolen the items from his bag. Azadin asks to change his clothes, wondering if he can borrow some pieces and if they can wash the ones he is wearing. Ishmael whispers to Midian, saying that he knew this would happen, but this is really bad. She responds that regardless of his birth circumstances, he is still a herald and that helping him is their duty. In the middle of this, they throw a dress at him, saying that this is the change of clothes. When he looks down, he asks if they can stop being childish, as he doesn't exactly want to hit them. They ask what the hell he's barking about, questioning if he thinks they're acting like servants just because he's so great. They say that he never would have managed to be one of the 108 spirits if it weren't for luck. Midian says that if they're so frustrated, why don't they settle it with a duel, or are they afraid of the risk involved? She says they're only good at talking. Azadin thinks it shouldn't be her talking about the risk of duels, since she's the one who lost 2 of them. The man approaches her, saying that she's only saying this because she knows nothing about Azadin, since he didn't even take a single punch. She asks if that's really the case and jumps from the ground into the air, landing on the man's back while holding a knife to his throat. He asks what she's doing, calling her miss. Midian says he certainly doesn't understand the situation he's in. She explains that she is of Ether descent, and that, as a mere servant, he dares to make such sarcastic comments. She says that if he doesn't like Azadin, then he should step forward and prove himself through actions, not words. She states that it's a joke to think that Azadin couldn't take a punch, asking if he really is underestimating the heralds this much. Before anyone can approach, Ishmael seems nervous. Midian is still angry. We see the man from earlier saying that things have gotten pretty tense, and then asks Azadin if it's been a while. Azadin confirms, and the man asks Midian's name. She answers, saying that her name is Midian of Aether. He introduces himself as Derek of Seven and apologizes on behalf of his companion, asking if she could stop as he doesn't want their clans spilling blood. She pulls the blade away from his throat and jumps back. The man comments that she definitely has spilled blood, as we see a bit of her neck. His friend tells him to just spit out his pride. Derek calls out to them, and then we find out that their names are Pedo and Kosarak. He tells them to focus on their duties at the association while Derek passes by Azadin. Derek then tells Azadin to wash up and come, as he wants to have dinner together. Azadin wonders why he's bothering, but ends up accepting. That night, Azadin is back in his room after taking the bath, saying that he feels refreshed after soaking for a while. We see scars all over his body. Ishmael calls him, asking why he's standing still, explaining that although his birth circumstances are tough, Ariel, who shares his blood, is revered. He heard that those who challenge her and make comments about her are immediately punished. Azadin responds that she has her own way of doing things. He then says that because of this, he should hurry and convince Midian to move on. Otherwise, they'll end up like him. That night, he goes to Derek's tent. Derek has dinner prepared. We see a question that surprises Azadin so much that the food falls from his spoon. The fellow asks if he's ever heard of Ariel. Azadin replies no and wonders why he's still asking about her. Derek says that he's worried about his older sister. Azadin then responds that, considering her abilities, she's not someone to worry about. He also says that this is unbelievable, as the first thing Azadin Azadin did upon arrival was attack members of the association while reaching for apples. Derek grabs the apples and removes them, saying that Azadin should start talking about his work already. Azadin responds that he is doing his job properly and collecting gold coins. Derek then asks about the attacks on other merchant associations, questioning what happened to the idea of keeping them under control. Azadin says he should look at it, asking if he's seen something like this, as it's none other than the staff he obtained. Derek confirms yes and explains that Bishop Kurt Godkin uses this tool to search for the copy of the Book of the Divine King, and that's why Midian is here, as she was delivering a letter from the district leader. Azadin says that he's surprised that everyone knows about this. Derek replies that he's the only one who doesn't know because he hasn't been making his reports. Ringing the Swan was a good contribution, but it would have been better if he brought something related to the Divine King's copy. He confirms with a gesture and at the same time grabs an apple. Derek, completely surprised, asks what he means by that. Azadin replies that this must mean that all the other heralds came back empty-handed before he can eat the apple. Derek grabs his hand, telling him to hand over the copy immediately. Azadin is confused, wondering why he wants it. We see that even though it's night, the market is still bustling and Ishmael and Midian are outside, taking care of the horses. Then they hear Derek shouting Azadin's name, and we see that he is genuinely terrified. Azadin looks at him, and Derek asks if he is implying that he doesn't trust him. He claims that he can protect the copy much better than someone as powerless as Azadin. Frenetically, Azadin responds that it would certainly be harder for Derek. One of the bastard children of Marcus Kazel, along with his group, is heading there, and among them are heretics who follow Kurt. Derek laughs, asking if Azadin really thinks they would lose to them, and although he lost to Uriel, he had to former herald. Azadin says that this is the problem. Surely Derek thinks there would be rumors if a group of merchants fought so well. Derek responds that this isn't important, as what truly matters is protecting the copies. Besides, he is much weaker than Uriel. Azadin says he is referring to when they were all children, as Derek wasn't a match for his sister back then. Compared to what he was then, Derek has become much stronger, but Uriel is now the strongest warrior of her kind, with countless followers at her feet. And it's been years since he last saw her, so he can't even imagine how much stronger she would be now. He says he will personally deliver the copy to the regional manager, and that it would be better that way. Derek begins to get annoyed, reminding Azadin that he is a senior. One of the merchants rushes in, saying that there is a problem, something happening at the east gates. Earlier, at the east gates of the city, we see a group of soldiers waiting there. One of them is surprised to see Jarkiv and his men stopping. He says there are too many to pass, ordering them to camp somewhere else and return tomorrow. Jarkiv laughs, telling the guard Duran that he did a good job, and that he should take this as a token of gratitude for all his hard work today, handing him a bag of money. Jaren says that he is in a difficult situation, reminding him that he is also a knight. Their leader says that if anything goes wrong, both of them will end up as priests in the Church of the King, so they are in this together. Jaren then says that if he guesses correctly, yes, and he will let them in, but will soon be greeted with a sword to his skull as the captain decides to take action and cut him on the spot. When Jaran's body falls to the ground, Jarkiv looks on in horror, as it is not just the captain, but the rest of his men are also killing all the guards. He tells them that he didn't want this to happen. The captain replies that he should be happy, as there wouldn't be any fun if they didn't do this. Jarkiv says that he is making it very difficult, as there are 3 gates. The captain responds that it is nothing to worry about while looking at his hand. We see the light of the forbidden flesh glow as insects start crawling out of it. The captain then blows on them, making them rise in the wind as they begin to attach to everyone in front of them. The spiders begin to crawl inside their bodies just as they did with Prince. All their bodies grotesquely grow, revealing that they are now giants. Jarkiv says that he can't believe he never realized he was a heretic. The captain smiles, saying it took him too long to realize and that they should continue working together because it's mutual help. He will get the Book of the Divine King, and Jarkiv will have his revenge. The captain smiles again, asking what Jarkiv thinks of his offer. Then he whistles again, causing the spider in Jarkiv's stomach to go wild, making him fall to his knees in pain. The captain's men look down at him, and the captain says that no one is allowed to leave this village from now on. He orders them to find the rat that stole their belongings. We see a man leaving his house, looking at the gates, wondering what the problem is. He approaches and asks what is going on, being informed that some guys are stopping them from leaving the village. They begin to question why they can't leave. The guys affected by gigantification say it's because he said so. One of the villagers says that he has no right to stop them and tries to push him aside, saying that he will leave. Then the giant grabs the guy's head like a basketball, lifting him into the air, saying that he already said that no one is allowed to leave. The rest watch in horror and begin to run, and the guy says something feels wrong. His partner agrees, and they begin to salivate, saying they are hungry. Spiders begin to crawl out of the guy's hand, and we see his mouth opening, revealing a full fuel for nightmares. The villager closes his eyes in fear, only to hear a strange sound. He opens them and sees an arrow lodged in the guy's throat, causing him to lose balance and start falling. The villager turns around, wondering what's going on. He and the guy's partner looks up after hearing something, only to be impaled by Azadin, who drives his spear into his back, planting him to the ground. The villager starts to catch his breath, and we see Azadin began pulling the spear from the guy's head while noticing that spiders are crawling all over him. He says they are subordinates of the Spider Queen Heretics. People started running, overcome with fear from what they had just witnessed. Still standing over the monster with his spear, Azadin looked back when he heard someone calling his name. Midian asked if he had already defeated the monster. Azadin replied that this was just the beginning. Pointing behind him, he instructed them to enter the tent to grab food and water. Ishmael asked if he should do it immediately. Azadin shouted yes, because many people might starve right now. Shortly afterward, Midian made a surprised expression as behind Azadin, the monster began to rise. She screamed, telling him to look behind him. Turning quickly, Azadin realized the monster was already standing and about to attack him. Thanks to his speed, he was able to leap back. Looking ahead, he saw two zombies saying they were hungry and only wanted meat. Looking more closely, he noticed that these creatures had a terrifying appearance. Certainly, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night after witnessing something like this. Azadin commented that the monster could still move in this state because the spiders were likely controlling its nervous system. As a result, the two enemies advanced toward him. As he distanced himself, Azadin wondered what would happen if he sent shockwaves through their bodies. After another failed attempt to grab him, the monster's vision was blocked as Azadin threw a cloth over its face. Curious to test a skill he wanted to use, he decided to employ it. With his electricity, he struck the monster directly. As soon as the attack hit, several spiders began to fall. The monster collapsed to the ground with a horrific expression. However, the battle wasn't over yet, as another spider unexpectedly attacked him. Demonstrating great agility, Azadin dodged the claw coming toward him. It was evident that the monster now had several tentacles and numerous small spiders crawling all over its body. Letting out a sarcastic laugh, Azadin realized the monster had evolved considerably. Someone called his name, and when he looked up, he saw a torch falling toward him. He caught it and threw it at the monster. As a result, the intense heat began to affect it. Not wasting time, Ishmael helped Azadin by engulfing all the enemies in flames. Left with no choice, the two monsters stayed in place, consumed by the fire. Azadin, seeing the situation, praised the work done and ordered that they ensure the fire didn't reach the merchant camp. In his thoughts, he remarked that it wasn't so bad. The two who were nearby watching the scene realized that the fire was indeed working against the monsters. One of them, positioned a little further back, shouted for them to burn those bastards. Without hesitation, they followed the plan, throwing fire at the monsters. They all began to be consumed by the flames. With a torch in his hand, Azadin attacked one of the monsters, which quickly caught fire. As it fell to the ground, it was consumed by the flames while Azadin watched calmly. After noticing that the situation had calmed down, Azadin sighed with relief. He asked about the food and water, and Midian replied that they had gathered everything they could find. Ishmael asked if he should bring the goats too, and was interrupted by Midian, who celebrated, saying they had finally been truly useful. She smiled, stating that Azadin would always need them and therefore should accept them. However, Midian was interrupted by an owl arriving, calling Azadin's name. The bird perched on his shoulder and he asked if there was a new contractor. She confirmed, and Azadin, curious, asked where he was. The owl informed him that the contractor was to the west. At that moment, Azadin stopped breathing for a second. Upon hearing this, he showed some irritation. Picking a dagger from the ground, he ordered the other two to prepare more fire and head to the west gate. In just a few seconds, they quickly set off toward the location. Meanwhile, Midian and Ishmael remained watching, and she commented that Azadin now only knows how to give orders. At that moment, Azadin was already facing another aberration, landing precise strikes. The monsters were so grotesque that he jokingly compared them to his own appearance when waking up. One of the monsters prepared to attack him, but Azadin swiftly dodged, making the punch miss. Tired, he muttered that he simply wouldn't die, reminding himself that an ordinary human would have been defeated long ago. He noticed that the monsters were continually evolving and their numbers were growing rapidly. Because of this confrontation, he calculated that he would be delayed in reaching where the contractor was. No matter how many attacks he landed, the monsters wouldn't stop. Suddenly, an arrow wrapped in electricity appeared from above and struck the monster, delivering a devastating shock. The enemy, now charred, collapsed to the ground. Behind him, Midian held a bow, smiling with satisfaction. She cheered, claiming that she knew lightning would be effective since the monsters were weak to fire. Shortly after, she showed signs of fatigue and nearly collapsed from having used so much magical power. Ishmael supported her, calling her name in a worried tone. Azadin watched the scene silently. After a moment, he admitted that Midian was very skilled and gave an unexpected compliment, making her radiant. However, he warned her about the dangerous nature of excessive grimoire usage and recommended she rest. Ishmael, in turn, showed dissatisfaction, grinding his teeth. In his thoughts, he reflected on how Midian was working so hard just to be accepted by Azadin. Filled with irritation, Ishmael questioned Azadin about the contractor, asking if he was already dead. Azadin confirmed that yes. In disbelief, Ishmael asked why he kept fighting. He argued that even if the contractor was dead, Azadin couldn't just leave without checking for himself. Azadin, holding his sword, acknowledged that Ishmael was right, but looking back, he declared that for this reason, he would need to kill the leader of these creatures. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.